How did I go from never managing a community before to managing communities for multinational companies and now mentoring others to help them build their own online communities? Hi, I'm Carmen, the community coach. I'm an experienced community manager and now I mentor others to help them build their own online communities. But how did I even get here? And what did that journey look like? If you're interested in getting in community management as a career and you have no idea where to start, well, I'll be sharing my journey into the wonderful world of community management and busting a few myths along the way. And if you don't even know what community management is, well, hopefully my story will help make that clearer for you too. So let's dive in. I didn't have a traditional career path. I studied business at university and I focused on marketing, management, and economics. If I'm honest, when I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I fell into sales in private wealth banking. That means I dealt with really wealthy clients, but they could be from all different backgrounds. It was a great start to my career because I received formal training around how to communicate in a really professional setting to people that were from all different types of backgrounds. They just happened to be wealthy. Every day would be different. There would be one day where we'd have an investment banker as a client who knew way more about finance than us. And the next meeting could be with a wealthy widow who didn't know the difference between stocks and bonds. And all these clients had different expectations and requirements in the way that we dealt with them. The role required empathy, adaptability, resourcefulness, and tenacity. It was super fast-paced, highly charged, and it truly required great communication skills. After spending several years in banking, I decided that it just wasn't my passion, and I had to find the next thing. I had to try something else. And I decided to do something crazy, and I started my own e-commerce business. I had no experience in e-commerce. I just really loved tech. I wanted to really challenge myself and do something completely different. I started sourcing products from all around the world and selling them in Asia. I'd saved up a little bit of money to start the business, but I didn't have a lot, so I really had to bootstrap everything. I learned to code, and my e-commerce store was actually incredibly powerful. I was really proud of it. It had great functionality. You could shop from the lookbooks. It was actually a super sophisticated website. I also had to convince brands to stock with me, and I had no previous e-commerce business, so that was a real challenge. But I managed to sign over 21 brands. Some of them were sold in some of the biggest competitors, and some decided to sell exclusively with me online. But here's where my story with community truly began. I had zero money to spend on marketing in my business, so I had to think super creatively. At the time, Facebook groups was really starting to kick off, and I had joined a bunch of them in the countries that I was selling my product to, mainly to get research around my target audience. What were they asking for? What were they talking about? I felt like groups was the perfect way for me to get intel on my target customer. So I specifically had joined communities where I knew my target customer base was hanging out. One of the groups in particular had 15,000 members at the time, and I was active in that community. I never spammed the group. I never talked about my business openly, but I was genuinely interested in having relationships with these people and truly understanding them better. I was actively listening to the people in the community. I was listening to what they were saying, their fears, their frustrations, their challenges. And what I would do is I would go away and write blog posts addressing these common concerns or challenges, and I would publish them. I'd reply in their comments and say, hey, here's something that you may be interested in reading. I was never selling or spamming the group with products. I was always trying to find ways to add value to the people in this community, even from the very start. Now, I distinctly remember waking up one morning and checking my e-commerce sales dashboard and seeing a ton of orders had come through that morning. I then realized I'd been tagged in Facebook. One of my customers had purchased one of my products and had left a rave review in this group of 15,000 members. That review in that community was the reason why I suddenly had orders come flooding in. And that was the moment of realization to me that community can be incredibly powerful in business. This is before community even became such a big buzzword as it is today. I'd spent $0 on advertising, yet I could sell out of products if people mentioned them in this Facebook group. I became obsessed with community, even more so than the e-commerce side of my business. I didn't own the community that had 15,000 members. I wasn't an admin or a community manager. And so I generally felt powerless when I started to notice a transition within the community. The community started to get more hate comments creeping in, and generally a more toxic behavior was starting to arise out of the group. One day a member wrote in this group complaining specifically on how the group had become more toxic. They were fed up with the mean messages that were being circulated around, and hundreds of other members commented on that post saying they felt the exact same way. That's when I knew I wasn't alone in thinking that this group was changing, and I realized that I could do something about it by starting a new group. Because I'd spent so much time paying attention to the members in the group and understanding their own needs, I felt like I could create a new group and just make it a better experience for them. I knew this is the moment to start a community where I had more control over the vibe. So I immediately worked on creating a new Facebook group. I had never done this before, but I figured things out, like what the description should be, what should be the house rules. I knew that it was really important when setting up your house to make sure that everything was super clear from the start. I really wanted to make sure that we could avoid that toxic vibe that had infiltrated the other community. I made sure that previous issues were addressed in the new group, and then I went back into that previous community and commented on that post saying, hey, I hear your frustrations. I felt this exact same way because I was also a member of this group, and I let them know that I'd started a new group, and if they were interested, feel free to join. Well, that group quickly grew to over 5,000 members, and that was the very first community that I built. I was completely hooked. I just want to confirm that I had no professional experience with building communities when I started that group. I learned a lot from actually building the community, as well as being active in the other communities first to see what works, what doesn't. So now it's time to bust a couple of myths. The first myth is you can't build a community without having community management experience. The truth is, if you're passionate about something, you can build a community around that passion. You can always learn the community management strategies and tactics and tools. You can learn all of that, but you can't learn passion, and that is truly required to continue building this community over time. Another myth, you need money to start a community. That's simply not true. I've started communities with $0, like I did with the very first one that I created, and I definitely didn't spend any money on advertising to try and acquire members. All the growth came from word of mouth, and I've seen this time and time again if communities are set up right and the people that are behind the community truly understand the members. So like I said, I was spending more and more time on the community aspect rather than the e-commerce side, and I realized that community was my calling. I felt like it was naturally something that I was good at, and I really wanted to deep dive into that. So I stepped away from my e-commerce business and I moved into community management professionally. I still didn't have any formal experience with community management, and when I looked online at the time, there wasn't that much out there in terms of formal training. I found a role in a multinational company that was looking for someone that had startup experience and they had corporate experience. And the role was really to connect the two types of groups together. And that was a perfect fit for me because I'd just come away from my own e-commerce startup, but I also had the banking experience at the time. So even though I didn't have any formal community management experience, the fact that I'd grown a community to 5,000 members by myself showcased to this company that I could build community and that I knew the people that they were trying to target. Now, this role is where doors really opened for me. The company was super supportive in my own professional development, and I was able to attend conferences like CMX, which is the Community Managers Professional Associations, where they would host workshops, they would host huge conferences every year. They would get really experienced community managers that were well ahead of the curve than I was, and I could learn from the best of the best in terms of how to build a community. I was also reading a ton of community management books, and there's some really, really great resources out there. I was like a sponge. I just absorbed absolutely everything, and I would then go and take all those learnings and try and apply those to the communities that I was building in this company. I learned so much in this role, from my failures, from my successes, learning from other people that were years ahead of me, from talking to people that were building communities across all different industries. It's a very supportive industry because it is such a new industry. Of course, that's not to say that community management and building communities hasn't existed for a long time. It has. But in terms of the actual professional side of things and having a career in community management, that's still relatively new in the scheme of all professions out there. So it's definitely a very supportive industry where people are trying to help each other all rise up together. Another myth to bust: you need to study community management first before applying for a job. This is a total myth, and I need to bust it. You do not need to have professional community management experience before applying for a community manager job. I didn't have any community management experience in a company before I applied. I just went out and built a community. It's about relevant skills and passion, and that will actually take you a long way because you can learn all the other aspects of community management. So like I said, that role really opened doors for me, and I've now worked with companies like Unity Technologies. I've helped build multiple communities over the years. I've gone global with communities. I've gone from zero to global with ambassador programs to really scale things up. I've built from offline to online. I'm obsessed with online communities, if I'm honest. Because someone that's really passionate about global communities, I think there's so much value to add by being able to connect people from the opposite sides of the world, but they have something truly in common. And if you can form connections with those people that ordinarily wouldn't meet because they're just not based in the same physical location, well, I think there's just true magic in that. I've seen communities change people's lives, and I've also seen the hugely positive impact it can have on businesses. And during COVID, I had people reaching out to me asking for help on how do they build their own online communities, especially in the business environment. They may have been used to just organizing some in-person events, but then they've realized the importance of going online, not just during a pandemic, but just the fact that by going online, you actually open doors to the rest of the world. Because I'd built so many communities time and time again, I'd realized that I'd actually formalized the process of what it takes to build a community. I did the same routine over and over again. There's always these steps that I follow. It's worked for every community that I've built that has done really well. So I packaged up all this knowledge, and that's where Community Coach was born, which is really a mentoring program to help give other people structure when it comes to building their own community, but doing it in a way that they feel like they've got the support and there's somebody there to guide them who's had the experience, who's gone through it all before, and really just help them get going. I really love supporting others, and what's been really cool is lately in my DMs, I've been receiving more questions around how do I get into community management. I have no idea where to start. I really appreciate if you've made it to the end of this video, and I hope that my story helps motivate you, whether it is getting into community management as a career, or if you're looking to build your own community and you wanted to understand a little bit more about how community management can impact business. I'm more than happy for you to reach out to me if you want to chat about community. I'll leave my details in the description. Like I said, I'm obsessed with communities, and on this channel, I'm going to be talking a lot about the ins and outs of how to start a community, how to grow a community, how to engage your members. So if you're interested in the topic of community at all, you can like and subscribe to my channel and get notified when I drop a new video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.